Yeah, I got egged on Halloween. Didn't you? Isn't that why you hate it and don't celebrate it? Or is it because the cost of decorations is a little too high these days? Anyways. What's up, y'all? Real quick, I know I'm like a day late or whatever the fuck. I actually don't really celebrate it, although, it's like I'm down with the festive vibes of, the harvest season and Samhain, or however people want to pronounce it in regards to the Celtic holiday, if you will. Celtic pagan, if you will. Like, not the fucking bullshit religious idea of what pagan shit is, whatever. Did I lose you yet? No, just kidding. So, yeah, Crypt Rick, I've been thinking. He always has wonderful thoughts, and I love the fact that he brings on wonderful guests, including myself. I showed up like an hour late because I forgot about the daylight savings or losing time of the switch in Europe. It's not the same in America. Anyways. So I come on in the second hour. But in the meantime, there's, some great folks up in the house. We got Sara Cross. She has her radio show now called Crosstalk, which is also on Revolution Radio. We can check that out. We've had, discussions with her a couple times now, including Dissolving the Divide, as well as Jaymee Jay, who is a wonderful woman who helps survivors from SRA type of shit. And there's also Chris Jantzen in the house, with the One Great Work Warriors and Evil podcast. So it's a really fun crew, roundtable type of shit. So I hope y'all enjoy. It's not just about Halloween. Rick wanted to get some, spooky stories in the mix and, kind of talk about ideas of, ghosts and paranormal stuff and that kind of things, whether personal stories or whatnot. And yeah, I won't spill the beans just yet, but yeah. Thanks again to Crypt Rick in the house. Check him out. Revolution Radio.
Revolution Radio. Welcome to Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking. What's this show all about? Well, it's all in the title. He enjoys interviewing people about issues that he finds interesting and which cause him to sit back and think. Cryptocurrency, true crime, natural law, the occult. No topic is off limits here. He has always enjoyed when people give their points of view or thoughts on different topics that they have researched. And what makes it all great is that it's their unique take on what is being discussed. For that reason alone, it makes it interesting to him. So take that walk down to his crypt. Make yourself comfortable. And just maybe, he will be discussing a topic that you have been thinking about. Here's your host, Crypt Rick.
Welcome, everybody. It is time, of course, for my favorite show of the year. One of my favorite shows of the year, I should say. And that is my Halloween special show. I am looking forward to this show because it's going to be a great show because I'm going to be having some guests on. We're going to get a round table going. And as anyone that listens to this show knows that Halloween is my favorite time of year. This is the time of year that I look forward to every year for many different reasons. And I like to do something special for each show, and this is going to be no different. I thought I'd get a round table on, get some different people on. This is a show where I want to hear what you guys have been thinking about. You guys know what I've been thinking about, talk about it twice a week. But I want to know what you guys are thinking, because there's a lot going on around the world. We can talk about whatever it is you want. This is totally totally off the cuff. I wanted no planning for this. I just wanted to get some people on here, and wherever the conversation wants to go is where it is going to go. That is this type of show I love doing, because I love hearing what you guys think. That's the whole reason I interview people, is because I like to hear their points of view, and that's what I mean. This show is about what you guys have been thinking. If you want to join, just reach out to me if you can. I kind of put it out there a while ago, but if you do want to come on the show and give us your thoughts on something or chime in on a conversation, you are more than welcome to. Just reach out and let me know, and I will try to get you on the show. I do have a couple of people that are going to be joining me very, very shortly, and it's going to be a great conversation. I have no idea what we're going to get into. It could be Halloween. It could be what's going around the world, what's big now. The elections are going on. I mean, I've been hearing about Trump. Just got reminded about it about 4 minutes ago from my neighbor, who just brought up if I heard the whole Trump-Rogan thing and stuff like that. I'm like, of course I heard the Trump-Rogan thing. I don't think there's many people that haven't. And then I had another friend telling me about Trump filled up Madison Square Garden. I'm like, I'm not surprised. The guy's a showman, if anything. He's been part of the WWE at times. He knows how to put a show on. Like, he just does. He's a comedian too. So he's got comedic timing, and he knows what the value of entertainment is and putting a show on. So it does not surprise me that he filled Madison Square Garden in the least. I mean, it would surprise me if certain other people did, but not him. People go to hear what crazy shit he's going to say, right? And I mean, it works. It's working. So who knows what we're going to get into tonight, but don't not forget, please, donate if you can. It is listener supported here at Revolution Radio, and there's so many ways to donate. Just go to the donation tab at Revolution.Radio, or of course, freedomslips.net. And then there's lots of ways to donate. There's snail mail, cryptocurrency, there's direct pay for North America, and of course, there is Patreon, which lets you set an amount, and then they take care of it for the rest of the month, and you can donate, and they take care of it. I love that part about it. You just send them out you want to do, they take care of the rest of it. You don't have to worry about it, and you are supporting the station, which is so important. Over here for over 10 years, the station's been up and going, which is incredible in its own right. I mean, it really is. And just a second here, I'm going to do something here. I just want to see, just got to make sure you guys can hear me and stuff. I always check, but I think I can. I don't know if you guys heard the intro or not. I mean, I was trying to play the Phantom of the Opera intro. Whether it worked or not, I don't know. But sometimes, Skype, it just not like to work. So that is what we got going on here. It's going to be a great round table. I got Chris Jantzen coming on. Of course, Jaymee Jay, who I love having on here. I love having both of them on here. It's going to be a great conversation, and I would like, if anyone else wants to join, reach out to me. I will bring you on the show, and you can discuss whatever you want. So just keep saying, I want to hear what you guys have been thinking about. And I mean, pick your poison. There's so much going on right now. So great stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. I just really excited for this time of year. This has always been the holiday that gets me amped up the most, and for no dark reasons either. I like the imagery, as anyone that knows me knows. I like the dark imagery, and so it just appeals to me. And I especially love seeing people dress up. I think that's so cool. That's one of the best parts, is handing out the candy to the kids and seeing all the costumes they come up with. That was a big part of when I was growing up. Like, I would start planning my costume like 6 months before Halloween. And what was always funny, and I think, Bobby, maybe a lot of you can relate to this, who used to do this before you could buy them or rent them for a crazy price, is that you would start designing your Halloween costume 6 months before, and then by the time Halloween got around, you changed your costume like 4 times. So you kept saying you're going to do this, you're going to be a pirate. No, I'm not going to be a pirate. You're going to be a doctor. You're not going to be a doctor. You're going to be a werewolf. No, and then by the time Halloween got around, you usually didn't, any of your original decisions you didn't go with. And that, at least for me, that's how it went. I would start planning stuff so far ahead. And by the time Halloween got around, it was a totally different costume. And usually it was a hodgepodge of all the costumes I was making. I kind of put them all. It was really crazy. But it's incredible now what people can do and what people can buy for their Halloween costumes. And that's what I love about it every year. And the little beggars coming around to the door and asking for candy like I used to do and drive people crazy. But it's just a cool time of year. And I don't know. I want to hear if you guys think it's a cool time of year. A lot of people think it's a dark time of year. I do know. Wouldn't want to be a black cat at this time of year. I'd be kind of hiding in the shadows. And I know a lot of the shelters around here and people that adopt, where you can adopt cats from, they will not let a black cat out of their sight until after this holiday. So who knows? Superstition dies hard, man. It really does. But I'm going to go ahead and get Chris Jantzen on here first. Let me get him on here. I gave him a warning. Let's see if he's on the ball here. So I got to add some. See what I mean? I'm just so amped right now that I got to add some people. Let's get this show rolling. I want to hear what Chris is thinking about. He's always great to have a chat with. That is for sure. Uh-oh. All right, hold on. Don't be messing around here. There we go. Now I'm going to get him. We're bringing him on. Chris, if you're listening, I'm coming for you. Ooh. Let's see if we can get him on here. Then we're going to pull Jaymee in, and then anyone else that wants to join us.
Are you ready?
Are you there, Chris?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfect.
Oh, it's amazing.
You sound amazing. Of course you sound amazing.
Thank you. I take the compliment.
How have you been doing?
I'm doing really good, man. It's good to hear from you. How about yourself?
Absolutely. Well, I'm doing good. I'm excited, as you can tell, because, like you know, because you know me, that this is my favorite time of year. For a variety of reasons, none of them dark, of course, but I've had people question me on that before, and so I wanted to get a round table. I got you and Jaymee Jay are going to join me. I'm going to get Jaymee on here very, very shortly. She's listening a couple of minutes from now, Jaymee, so get ready. And we can have a conversation about whatever you guys want to talk about. I want to hear what you guys are thinking about. Everybody knows what I'm thinking about. I talk about it all the time.
Well, I like this time of year too, Rick, and I have a few reasons, and they're not dark.
Well, that's good. Big Halloween fan growing up?
Although dark isn't necessarily a bad thing, right?
Oh, okay. Going deep already.
Yeah, I mean, because point with the End Evil podcast guy, I feel like people kind of like tend to think dark, evil, they put conflate all those words together, but evil's not necessarily dark and dark's not evil. You know what I mean?
No, that's a good point.
Bad is not dark.
That's a good point. That could be something we could discuss, because you're right too, because your show's End Evil, and so I imagine people kind of wonder. It's weird how people think like that, and because of my imagery, people always question. Like, I think they think that I got like this dark streak in me, which I mean we all do, but that's not the reason that I like the imagery that I like. I've just, for some reason, I've always been drawn to I've talked about this so much, but I'm drawn to the darker imagery since I was a kid. I mean, it's just who I am. If I tried to be anything else, it wouldn't be real.
Well, how do you separate from your own shadow? You know?
Yeah.
And having a shadow, is that a bad thing?
No, you're right. It's right. But it's weird how people think that way, though. Like, I don't look like, I've had people question because, like I said, my imagery, and they kind of like, what is going on with this guy? But it's an interesting question. I'm glad that you brought that up. Dark. What is like?
I got this one. This just occurred to me the other day. The sun will never shine on your shadow.
Ooh, that's true.
Deep thought.
You're gonna have people just thinking now, going, "Damn," But no, and really interesting and evil. Like that's what I love about you. You break down words and then you dive into, which is so cool when you start doing it. I tell all my listeners, like, you really start breaking words down and their origins and what their true meanings, and it's a whole new world. It was for me. I was just like, wow. And then you realize how quickly they're hijacking language when you start really figuring out the meaning of words and stuff like that. Very interesting.
In a way, the bigger part is like, what do we mean?
Oh.
There's a lot of times like, what do I mean when I'm talking about that? Because you can look at the etymology, you can look at the derivation, and then you can look at the way people are using it, what other people But what really matters is in a conversation with somebody, or you're, starting a presentation, is say, well, this is what I mean right now. In the context, a lot of things mean something different depending on the context.
Mm-hmm.
That's
a good point.
So, like, that's why I like to say what I mean when I'm talking about evil is the way humans treating each other, destroying each other's access to freedom, the destruction of freedom.
Yeah.
So anything that a human does to another human, and I don't even have to get into beyond human because I'm only really talking to other humans. I don't even know any aliens. And if they are, that's what they are. So I'm going to call them humans until I get some good proof. I'm talking about humans, I'm not talking about like animals and volcanoes and it getting dark out or, red guys with horns that haunt your dreams and stuff. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Evil. I'm talking about what humans do to other humans or don't do to other humans. Yeah.
It's a good point, man. Like that, and you think of the horrible things that people do to each other, which I spend more time than I probably should thinking about that. Like I really sometimes, and because and it's kind of weird because I talk to you a lot. Like we do the One Great Work Warriors and that, so you're very familiar with how I feel about things. And I just sometimes always think like, wow, like we really went far off the path when I see how people treat each other. And at times I think we can't pull it back, Chris. I go through I always tell people I bounce back and forth constantly. Like one moment I will be like, how do we pull this back? Like, we've come so far off the road. How do we do this as a species? It's not like an individual. I get people change individually. There's good people out there. I get it. I'm not saying everybody's bad, but I'm saying in the aggregate, we're so far off the rails with morality and stuff. And then I see a moment of kindness by somebody or something that really moves me. And I'm like, wow, like maybe we can get back onto the road. I don't know. I flip. I constantly flip. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's just maybe how I am. I don't know.
I think that's the reason I latched on to that book, The End of All Evil, Jeremy Locke, because if you read that book, like, it is kind of hardcore and scary what he's saying, but
yeah,
it's really a golden path type message. He's saying really clearly in this book, like, evil's not going to win, guys, You
think so?
Somehow or another, the way this thing goes is
right.
What this whole reality is made of is the God, the good, and that's going to be the force that in the end is still here. Well, the evil is going to come and it's going to fade away. And he's actually describing this, long history of authoritarians trying to enforce their authority and how it keeps getting figured out,
Mm-hmm.
Like people finally figured out that, like, hey, wait a second, they're telling us we need to give them money so they can talk to God for us. Like, we don't need to give them money. We could just talk to God directly,
I agree.
People know that. Like, everybody knows that. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
They used to tell us, oh, no, you always have to have a king because who's going to protect you? You can't just be out there farming without a king,
Mm-hmm.
People saw the truth of that. If you weren't inside of a king's walls, you were going to get, chopped up by some crazy people in the forest sometimes,
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
And they're like, no, you got to have a government, right? Otherwise, foreign powers are going to come and destroy you. It's like people keep figuring it out, though. They're like, maybe not, maybe
Mm-hmm.
not. And we're going to figure it out. It's just the frustrating part for you and I. It's like, how long is that going to take?
Well, yeah, like it seems like a never-ending battle, but I know, and I heard what you said, like good always wins, but then I always kind of, I can't help but kind of push back. It's not really pushing back. It's kind of like just a thought that I get, and I'm like, maybe evil can win if good people do nothing. To me, and I'm willing to discuss this. I'm going to get Jaymee on here in like 1 minute, and we can get into this. I'm willing to go anywhere, and I'm always willing to learn. Chris knows that. You guys know that. But I always kind of push back and say, it makes sense that if good people don't do anything and we just let what's going on happen, evil can win. Like and that's just how I think. And maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. I probably am wrong. I don't know. But that's how I think. And I'm just being solely honest. I'm like, if good people do nothing, then how can evil not win? It's not like good just wins. We're talking about will. People's will to change things. Right?
Absolutely.
All right, cool.
That's why we're here, that's why you're doing the show, is that, yeah, like, it's one thing to talk about it in the cosmic sense, and like eons of who knows how many generations of beings before we get this figured out to an extent and we're able to end evil, right? Or evil ends, right, for the time being. But, I mean, we have every moment that we're alive. That's the amazing thing about this experience. It's not predestined. Every moment we're getting an opportunity to try something different,
Right, yeah. No, I get what you're saying. But so you wouldn't agree that evil could win? You think that no matter what, good is going to eventually, despite how long it takes?
In terms of evil, what we're describing is like humans doing other things, doing something to other humans, like violating, stealing some way from other humans, right?
Yeah.
And that's always going to be a possibility. But I think there is a time in the universe, but we think of time as very linear,
Mm-hmm.
But there will be a time in the progression of us as beings when we're no longer, when we get to experience freedom. I think absolutely that time will occur. How many thousands of years or a million years or days from now, I can't predict, but I know that time must come. That's the message of that book that I like so much. But are we going to be part of that process happening sooner than later? Or are we going to be part of the energy that is going in that direction, that light, right direction? Or are we going to be part of that other force that keeps wanting to slow that down,
Well, that's a good point. That's what I mean. Like, that's why I've been thinking a lot about our will, which I will be talking about tomorrow. Tomorrow evening I'm going to be talking about will, because I've really been looking into will. Like, I think it's so important, and I want to we got Jaymee Jay in here. Welcome, Jaymee Jay. You've been here many times, and we always have a great conversation. Thank you so much for being here. And Chris Jantzen, of course. And do you want to weigh on this? I mean, we are talking. I don't know how we got into something so deep so quick, but it's awesome. We are. Chris was saying that good wins over time, and I kind of pushed back, and I said if good people do nothing, I think evil can win. I think I absolutely can. Now, will good prevail over all? After, who knows? Like Chris said, it could take forever. I mean, but we will get there. I want your thoughts on this, Jaymee. Welcome, by the way, again.
Hey guys, sorry, I don't think I've met Chris Jantzen, but I do know who you are. I've watched a video or two of yours before. And then is there somebody else here too, or?
No, it's just us right now.
Oh, okay. So there's three of us.
There's me, Chris, and you.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it looks like four people on my screen. So
it's just the radio station taking up a slot.
Okay. Yeah. So I actually agree. Agree. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I actually agree. I think that what's right and what's good is in alignment with what is nature, that is God, and which is the creator. So you can't. I think that evil is only allowed for so long in order to contrast and temper good and to expand good even beyond to another level.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think it'll take as long as it takes. And I do think that we do have agency and will, how we're interacting with that process. Yeah, I do actually agree with kind of just the very last bit that I caught of there. But yeah, it's true. I think, I think evil can have kind of periods of sort of controlling things, but I don't think that could ever be a permanent thing that would go on any type of timeline, because it just goes against the creation itself. Like, it can only be allowed for so long before, just on a quantum level, it would have to expand beyond that back to something back to the original creation. That's just the way I look at it.
That's a good answer, actually. I was just putting that out there. I did like the question, because I've talked to people, and some people I talked to, and then I was telling Chris, I kind of bounce back and forth. Where sometimes I think we're so far off the road. I'm like, how do we pull? I just don't see how. It's so epic, and I always try to bring things into real life. It's so easy to get caught saying these cliche phrases. And then you say, okay, well, and then you get it. And then what I think is really dangerous, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on this, is that you find yourself in an echo chamber, I'm just being truthful. You're kind of around people that think like you, and then you think, okay, well, everybody's thinking like this. And then I go out and talk to people, and I realize very quickly that they don't. Like, a lot of people are like, they think I'm talking crazy when I talk about a lot of the things that we talk about. And I'm like, okay, so I think that's dangerous. I just think that we got to be aware of that, and it's not a bad thing. I just think that you got to be careful that, and just not to get caught in that trap, and then go out and talk to real people every day, that aren't necessarily following this stuff. And then that's when I realized that. And then, yeah, it's just, I try to apply what I hear and learn, and I'm on this journey like everyone else, as everyone knows, and I try to apply it in the real world. Like, how does this manifest in the real world? And I flip, Jaymee. As I said to Chris, I flip. Sometimes I think we are going to pull. I see something that makes me think, okay, we can do this. We can actually do this with enough people learning about, morality, and doing the work on themselves, which I think is what's missing in so many people. That foundation work, call it shadow work. Great term, overused but great. And I think we can. And then I see what's going on around the world, and I think, okay, maybe we can't. So that's where I'm at with this. And I just, I think I always try to apply it to the real world, what we're talking about, and how it changed things.
I always think of that kind of like spiral, or, where it's like two steps forward, one step back. So that is kind of how growth happens. Like, it's not going to be just a linear, pie chart going, or sorry, not a pie chart, but like a line going up, right? It's going to be, it's like, there kind of has to be, it is kind of like miniature deaths and rebirths kind of in a spiral, but it like every time we go through some major crap, you know, we overcome it to a place where we're higher than before that happened. But there does need to be like these dark valleys. I mean, just from observation, like if you look at history, right? Like, especially some really crazy periods like World War II and stuff, like, so like stuff got pretty crazy on a lot of the planet with a lot of people, like almost where people probably then really did think it was the end of the world and couldn't see any, you know, way to, you know, get out of that situation. But then after that situation, humanity, you know, learned some lessons and we're like, hey, let's like not do this again. And, you know, but like how quickly we forget, right? Because now we're back in this like same kind of stupidity, right? So it's like, you know, how much suffering do we need to, you know, expand? I mean, and I think Mark Passio talks about it too. Like, I think it was him, but he was saying like, you know, it's like we can be proactive about this stuff because we have brains and intelligence. And now with the internet and information sharing, like we don't necessarily need to always choose the path of suffering because we have so many other available options to proactively seek out knowledge instead of waiting till it's like punching us in the side of the head, right?
That's good. What do you think, Chris? I want you to chime in too, buddy. I want to hear what you're thinking. Well, you know what Jaymee said and what I said. I get what Jaymee's saying, though. We seem to be a species bent on learning the hard way. That's my take on it. Like our ego is so strong. Like, wow. I mean, it's like granite.
This like material reality is all about learning it the hard way. I mean, I don't know what we are before or after this experience, but my inclination is that I have this feeling that I kind of chose to come into this realm and I knew it was going to be a tough journey. It was like an adventure, you know. It's a what are his books, what are stories, what are movies? It's all like the hero's journey, right? And the hero's journey is never going to be too dang easy. Otherwise, what good of a show is it, you know? And this experience we're in is so amazing. It's so fantastic. A lot of times it's like a 2-in-1 deal where that's where like we get into hermetics because things are true and not true a lot of times. It's hard, you know, like light and dark, you know, are they opposites or are they the same thing on a continuum of light and no light, you know?
That's true.
So evil or no evil, one way I've thought about it is our body gets sick sometimes, right? So the body of reality has a cancer, right? That's like God is the great good of all. And evil is like the cancer inside of the good, right? It's going to work its way out. It's not going to, you know, either that or the body's going to die and reform a new body or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
And there's going to be this cycle, right? Like Jaymee was describing. And so I think that we got to work through this cycle. But one way it helps to kind of imagine is that everything is vibration. You know what I mean? And have you ever seen like those experiments they do and they put a bunch of sand on a plate and then hit a gong or something and it's
incredible,
you know, or like the Miramoto thing where, you know, you're thinking thoughts in the water and taking shots and pictures of what it would look like. And if you say like bad words and play like, you know, aggressive, terrible noises, you know, the water has these like kind of disruption looking ugly scenes. But if you say love and you think silence and you play beautiful classical music, water forms into this crystalline, amazing hexagonal structures and pretty flower looking, you know what I mean? So just as quick as you could pound on a drum and change the vibrations, you know, if humans are changing our vibe, literally, it could be a nanosecond where the whole illness of the world, the evil, gets fleshed out. You know what I mean?
Good point, actually. Frequency.
Imagine if we actually knew that there was a whole bunch of asteroids about to destroy the Earth. Wouldn't that, all in that moment, everybody realize that? That might really change our point of view and our attitude. You know what I mean? It is possible.
I agree.
So, and then I'm not saying I want asteroids to hit us, but you can imagine that there could be ways where we could all realize something very quickly and change our attitude in a moment's notice.
Good point, actually. I'm just thinking, like, and that's a good point, because the frequency, that's a word that's been coming up a lot in conversation lately with me. It's weird how you brought that up. Like, that's just very thinking, it's just very cool that I've been talking about frequency, because I agree that everything is frequency. And I do know the test that you're talking about, and it's incredible. I've seen the one where they do like an electric plate and they put sand on it, and then certain frequencies make these beautiful designs, and then you play, like you said, something like really horrible like music or something like that, and it's chaos. And I'm like, wow, if you know that power and you know how to manipulate that, which I'm sure they do, then it makes sense kind of what's going on in this world, right? What do you think, Jaymee?
Yeah, it's called kymatics, if anybody wants.
There we go.
Patterns. And so, yeah, I was just thinking, Rick, because me and you both like metal music and stuff, and especially like if I'm doing something like martial arts or something, I really want like aggressive metal music. And it just kind of made me think, as we're talking about that, it's sort of like we need these expressions and outlets for these frequencies of like rage or aggression or things like that. But there's like a healthy expression of them, which can be like listening to some metal and hitting a punching bag or something like that. Because when we just, we do live in a dualistic universe. And if we just try to have everything, butterflies and rainbows all the time, we're kind of actually like denying that shadow aspect of ourselves. And like in the universe that we're in right now, it's like, we see this kind of shadow rising out in like really unhealthy forms. And so I think this kind of plays into like the whole good and evil thing. And actually, I was just looking up a couple of things before the show, because like for Halloween and a Halloween show, and
Awesome.
Essentially Halloween's a little bit different than other holidays because it's an inversion ritual, right? And so this is the holiday where like people are dressing up like basically in Freudian terms like their id or their dark the dark recessed parts of the animalistic mind and the shadows, right? People are expressing that in what's called sublimation, which is like a healthy expression of the shadow. So like I think that's why little kids even love it so much, like just going and getting to like be bad for a night, right? Or be a goblin or whatever, So yeah, there's the reason that in magic or the occult they would do an inversion ritual is because when you kind of allow something to go to its opposite, it creates kind of a charge from pulling away, and then when it comes back together again, it's really strengthened, right?
Yep.
I don't know. I always want to use the example of like makeup sex, right? Like it's like you have to get in the fight first and think you might break up in order to create.
Hell
that
yeah!
charge.
Shout out to makeup sex,
right? Like, yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right? So, but they do that in a lot of different things, actually, like on the political stage, and like they're always like almost taking something away, because then when they give it back, it's like a stronger bond than if they didn't pull it away a little bit first. And this is just like kind of an esoteric principle, right? And so when we have these sublimations or inversion rituals, which Halloween essentially is, the whole point of it, in anthropological terms or sociological terms, is to strengthen the social order that's already there, right? So they'll kind of like allow things to go away, and then people get anxiety of, being on the other side, and then they want to come back stronger to how they are. And so it's like, sorry, I was kind of missing my train of thought here, but yeah, so like, Halloween is an example of a inversion ritual, and it strengthens the normal social order. So like when I was in the military, we would always have one mess hall dinner a year where all of the officers would like serve the non-commissioned members. So it's like an inversion of the like slave master relationship, right?
Oh,
like the people who are normally the masters come and pretend to be your slave for one night, and then like for some reason it's just sort of a weird psychological ritual where you feel like it's all even for you to be the slave the rest of the year, like because they did their little act that one night.
Right.
And so, yeah, I always wonder with Halloween, like they're doing this, right? And then I wonder like how much they're just doing this to all of us in general.
Good point, man. That was amazing, actually. And that's kind of interesting, right? You're right. Because we did last year, I had Will Keller and Logan Hart on, and we really broke down Halloween and its origins. It was really a fascinating discussion when when you break down the origins and stuff. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because it's important. But see, that's my problem, is I don't look at Halloween I never have looked at it. I was saying to Chris at the beginning, I don't look at it as a dark thing. Like to me, it's just, I love this time of year, and for all the commercial reasons, basically. I mean, I don't know a better way to put it. I just love the whole imagery of it, and I like dark imagery. So I can't help it. I am what I am. And I said to Chris earlier, if I changed, and I still remember when I first started doing this, and my imagery was so dark, and I remember I was talking to my best friend, and I said, like, maybe I should put, like, flowers or something as my backdrop, or maybe I should put, like, a rainbow or something, like something that was really colorful. Yeah, I got slapped down, basically. My buddy's like, why? That's not you. Like, why are you trying to be what you're not? So I got slapped down because I was trying not to be. It was just a good lesson. And so I don't know why I went off on that whole tangent there, but it was interesting. I'm just thinking because we're talking about the imagery and that, but the inversion is interesting. What do you think, Chris? I mean, we know everything's getting inverted. I agree with Jaymee. I think that's our problem. This whole world, the more I dive into it, I'm just like, they've inverted everything. Like, I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where that's why people use the term of the onion, because every time you peel a layer, you get deeper and then you realize, oh man, that was only another layer. Now I'm opening another layer. Now I'm seeing a picture. But what was tripping me out when she was talking about inversion is I was remembering a Spanish word of winter is like inviernes or invierno, and then I was thinking about a lot of ways how the turning of the season is that kind of it is the natural version of inversion as we come out of this season where it was like all bright and sunny and we were sweaty and hot. Now we're going into this time where we kind of want to like get in the caves or go underground or get covered up, and all the ground's going to get covered up, and all the things that dwelled above the earth are going to go inside the trees and inside the earth. It is a very much a turning over, a going inside. The lakes turn over. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's a lot of aspects of nature that do just that this time of year, and that's kind of like what our natural preparation should be, and probably what like the pagan or tribal or pagan or, natural behavior of people and communities and nature would have been to do a sweat, like prepare for the winter, and like wearing masks and dancing around the fire as old as humans. And it's a natural way for us to like communicate with our community in sort of like a little bit more of a right brain creative way, not always logical, like you stepped on my doorstep for the last 3 days, I'm sick of it. It's like, how about dance, like dress up like your neighbor and a crow and show how he's kind of like the crow. He can be a little irritating, and you do it in a fun, playful way, right? And that's how a community would deal with problems and stresses and dance them out, act them out, express ourselves. And that's why it's such a beautiful holiday. I always love that. It's like one of the few times a year where people come out of their house and you meet some neighbors, like,
That's very good. That's a good point, actually.
For Halloween and having kids. It was great,
No, that's a good point.
But because you're saying, then it started occurring to me the last few years, and the more I'm looking into this deep, dark stuff, it's like, dang, it's a terrible holiday. Because that's when they can snatch kids all over the world. And people don't even realize they're doing it. They're probably doing it in mass that night, Because I know what the terrible ones are doing. They're doing that, and nobody's stopping them. At least not enough. Stopping them, so that's the scary part of it. There's two sides of this story for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was saying at the beginning, I'd be terrified to be a black cat right now, and it's weird how these traditions kind of linger. But I do know, like, all the shelters around here, probably like a few weeks before Halloween, and probably a few after, they won't let you cannot adopt a black cat. You just can't. Like, they're off limits where I live. It's just weird how these things kind of hang on. You know what I mean? But you make a really good. You guys are making good points, actually, because I like diving into things, and I think that this world is so crazy right now, and every time, I don't know about you too, but every time I think about it and look into it more, I'm like, God, it's like you said with the onion, Chris, it gets worse. Like, you keep peeling these layers back, and you're like, this is never ending, and that's why sometimes I think I flip back and get discouraged. But if I didn't have any hope, I wouldn't be here. So, and I wouldn't talk about the things I do. I think that people are good and how do I word this? I think people are good. People want to be good. Most people. God, it's such a deep conversation. Anyways, so I don't know. I mean, chime in. We got Sara Cross here. Thank you, Sara, for joining us. She, of course, does a show here at Revolution Radio. Sara Cross, Crosstalk. she was willing to come on here and join us. So we got, I know that Sarah knows Chris Jantzen for sure. And hopefully you've been listening, Sara Cross, which you said you have. Jaymee Jay, please meet Sarah.
No,
I've had Jaymee on many times.
I've never heard of you. I've just heard of Chris Jantzen, but I'll have to check you out for sure. Sara Cross. Okay.
Yeah, Crosstalk. She's on Revolution.Radio here. Does some amazing writing. I love listening to her when she writes, and I get her to read what she's writing. I'll bring her on the show about what she's thinking about. That's great stuff. So how are you doing, Sarah?
Hey, thanks for inviting me. And I'm with you, Halloween. I had put it in the comments, like, let's be real, Rick. We got to tell people the truth here, because the entire year is really all about next Halloween.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I agree.
So,
I love that. I love this time of year. This is
November 1st is like the first day of the countdown.
Yeah. It's so true. Like, if you guys saw my yard, it's so gaudy. Like, I'm one of those people, those neighbors that throw every Halloween ornament that I got, and I'm just like, oh, I'll just throw it all out there. But there is a dark side, like Jamie's talking about, Chris has brought up. I mean, I get it. I get there. And then I had a big lesson on it. Like I said, last year with Logan Hart, Will Keller, we dove really deep into it. And there, it's interesting. I find all these holidays really interesting when you start learning the origins of them. I'm fascinated, it seems, by learning the origins of things. I learned that about myself doing this over the last few years. It's like, wow, I really want, and I kind of was like that before even doing this. I always wanted to know the why. I was that why person. Why? And I just keep bugging people. And the origins are interesting.
I like history as well. I like all the history stuff, as you guys know. Like Chris and Rick knows that. But yeah, that's usually what I like the most, is the history, and to kind of dismantle a lot of the silly stuff. But like, there's the dark side of it and the light side of it. But I think, I was just listening, I agree with Jaymee there I think we kind of need both, because we need both the light and the dark side of reality, because then how do you know the difference otherwise? Yeah. So it's like, like if you watch like any kind of, I don't know if you guys have ever watched all like any of the old sci-fi, sci-fi channel, like totally campy type of TV shows or movies. Mm-hmm. And I know there's a TV show called Farscape, and they go to like different planets and stuff. And a couple of episodes, they go to planets, and it's like, seemingly perfect. Just like everything is just perfect. So the people, the general population, they're just like, no, it's all good, man. And it's like, everybody's like a free-loving hippie, and, no perspective, no, like, reality, like it's all fantasy, but like the hierarchy are still the same, psychopath type of people. And, it's kind of like they don't know the difference, because it's just been generation after generation of perfection. And, it's just like not an ideal thing, I think. I think there is a difference between evil and having the darker side of things. I wouldn't know what to call that, but, negative experiences, I guess. I would say maybe more specifically to have negative experience and positive experience while we are experiencing the physical manifestation of reality. While we are in that expression, we need both of those things to learn and advance. But that doesn't necessarily mean we have to have evil. I just think it's got to be both. You could get rid of evil.
That's really good point.
I think it's too simplistic with that kind of stuff sometimes.
That's what I always say. Like I keep saying, I try to break things down, and I try to apply it in the real world. And I don't know if that's a curse or what it is, but it's just what I seem to do. It's my default, and I learned so much. I've learned so much in the last 5 years, especially. But then I try to lay this. What I learn, I lay it kind of like a blanket over society, and I'm like, this is never going to fit. It doesn't fit. How do you can't get 5 people to agree on the color of the sky. How are we going to get people changing if they're, there's just assholes out there. There just is. And there's people that like being dicks, and they like being assholes. And They don't want to change, but I get it. I get what you're saying. I agree. Like I without love, how do you know hate, and vice versa, and how without anger, how do you know calmness, kind of thing. Like I get it. You need these polar opposites, and I agree with you. I think that having challenges is a good thing. I think that we need to, especially to grow. I mean, I try to look back in my life and analyze things. And I look at where I've done my most growth, and it's usually right before I go through a really horrible period. Like there's some type of growth there. If you find it, I mean, I could sit there and wallow in my misery. Trust me, I've done it, and I could sit there and wallow in it and feel sorry for myself. And I think people get stuck in that forever. I mean, and I don't think many people would even fault me. I think they'd be like, oh, of course he feels that way. Look at him, kind of thing. Like, look what he's going through. But I refuse. But I grow from it, and that's something I've had to learn and work on. But so important. So maybe this is maybe this point in history with humanity is like one of these growing pains, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely, because the thing is people need to stop kind of bickering about like some of the irrelevant type of details and realize that maybe instead of arguing about what color the sky is, realize that the sky is like a multitude of colors, and it's like several different colors. I mean, we can see that, like, so to argue about like irrelevant stuff is like nonsense. And then like, I kind of look like with my own experience. I mean, you understand this kind of stuff, Rick, is like, like where would I be if I didn't have what I, have experienced so far?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I kind of like was just thinking about that even earlier today. And I'm like, I'm pretty grateful that I'm in the place that I am now, even with all my negative and positive experiences together. But yeah.
I get it. And I want to get you to weigh on this, Chris, what we're talking about. And it's definitely you, Jaymee. But I'll just add to what Sara said. I agree. I do that too. It's very easy to get lost in the darkness and looking at all the negative. And I have to check myself. I'm just like everyone else. I check myself constantly because I can fall into this, and I'm well aware of it. I think that's the key. But I can get sucked into the dark thinking very, very easily, and it's easy to get in that way. And then I got to start thinking of all the good things. It's so like I got so much to be grateful for, like incredible things. And even with my condition, as messed up as my body is, it could be worse. Believe me, I've met people that put me in my place. I mean, I remember I was sitting at a meeting one day. My friend used to drag me to church meetings. And anyways, it's a long story. But I would go with him because I wanted to support him and stuff like that. And I remember sitting there and I was like, I'm going in and I'm going to go at this priest. You wait. I was waiting. I was like, oh, I cannot wait to light him up because, like, why? And my whole argument was like, if God is my father, and that's what they tell me, like, why would you ever hurt your children? And I thought I had a great argument. Like, I was like, I got him on this one. Like, how's nobody thought of this? Like, geez, I'm a genius. And so we went to the meeting, and he didn't need to say it didn't go the way I thought it would. And but we did get into a debate, and then I remember saying, like, why, if I am with my condition, I think a lot of people that have illnesses think that you're the only one, kind of thing. And just sometimes it feels that way, and then you realize you're not. And I got put in my place because I was sitting there complaining about my condition. Then I turned around, and there was a gentleman that was in a wheelchair, paralyzed from the neck down. And I mean, I got humbled. You want to get humbled? That's the way to do it. Instantly, I was like, I just went, oh my God, like I'm one of these people. And I just remember that. And he was paralyzed from the neck down and he wasn't born that way. He got into an accident, and it happened. And he was like, dude, like, you can move. Like, yeah, you're hunched over and you're limited, but you're doing things. I can't move from the neck down. And that just made me realize at that moment that we should be grateful for a lot of things, and there's worse out there. I don't know why I went off on that rant either, but sorry. It's just kind of what came out. And it's just what we're talking about. These grateful, there's good and bad, and there's always worse out there. And so I don't know. What do you think, Jaymee? Chris, weigh in, or I'm going to start rambling.
Rick, what you were just saying, I've been through this so many times where, sometimes I'll get in that state of mind where I'm kind of getting whiny and complainy about some aspect of my life. Maybe it's a physical thing. Maybe it's a, relationship issue I'm dealing with. But every time it's almost like as soon as I turn around, like I'll get a phone call from someone or I'll see someone walking down the street, and it's just like you saw, you know, some kind of reminder that reminds me, like, man, you don't got it bad at all, bro. You know, someone's got it worse, you know, or I'll talk to someone or I'll see someone. Something will remind me that whatever I'm worrying about is not that big a deal comparatively. But still, you know, like all the suffering, why do we have to have so much suffering? You know, I feel like part of that is because of sort of like that ball rolling down the hill, the cumulative choices of a lot of humans leading up to now and still living right now. Doing a lot of awful things, you know, and that vibration can change, the actions can change, and people cannot do those sinister things they're doing, and more people can resist them on a spiritual plane, and then on a mental plane, and then on a physical plane in that order, you know. But what I thought was really interesting is this topic that you brought up, and good to see you, Sarah. I love your work, and you're an awesome person. Always like to see you and hear you around. And you too, Jaymee. I've watched your show. I'm really inspired by hearing you on Rick's show before. So I'm really honored to be here speaking with you guys. But I thought it's a good, comes back around to what you were asking before, Rick, about willpower. And something I did when I did a presentation on willpower back a while back. And I was thinking a lot about, where does willpower come from? What creates willpower? And some of the answers I got to that question were kind of weird and the opposite of what I would have thought. But it is kind of like where we started this conversation too, where the dark comes and then the light comes, and they both need each other. And dark and light is not necessarily good and bad. You know, that's our subjective way of interpreting things. And that's where natural law comes in. It's very much about being human and an individual, and that's where all that collectivist thought, it never really works, like Lark and Rose. It's like fantastical, you know, to think about us as a big group, and, you know, we're all individuals with very different connections to our own divine, you know, consciousness, and there's no way to just kind of do that in a global manner, you know. Where does willpower come from? It comes from, a lot of times it comes from pain and trauma and things we don't want to happen. And that inspires us to work hard to make sure it doesn't happen to us or other people around us, or we can change it, you know?
That's a good point, man. What do you think, Jaymee? Do you want to... sorry, go ahead, Chris. Sorry. Go ahead.
I just said the light is often inspired by the dark, is a way to say that, kind of in a hermetic way, you know?
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, wow, really cool. And what do you think, Jaymee? Do you want to weigh on this? We got about 6 minutes before break, and then
I was just thinking, like, how could we actually have free will if there wasn't the binary option of good and evil? And a lot of times, people think that, like, an evil world order, you know, would, like, people always picture it as, you know, maybe dark, but, like, I mean, what I really consider like an evil world order is where there's no personal agency or freedom, right? And so when you look at these kind of AI worlds where everything's kind of automated, and maybe we could be under some type of illusion or mind control or, you know, holographic, whatever, where we don't have knowledge of everything evil, everything does look nice on the surface, or our mind is wiped from knowing the consequence of evil, right? So, and I mean, that's not really the universe that God wants, because that's why we are given free will, right? So that we actually can have knowledge and then choose good, like, with knowledge. Otherwise, if you're just choosing good automatically, it's not really exercising your will. And I think sometimes people frame it as like your yes isn't really a yes if you don't have the option to say no, right? So it's like when you think about the binary option of good and evil, like, they kind of do need to both exist in order for us to even exercise personal agency to choose good. Like, that couldn't really exist in a construct if we're just all under AI. And that's kind of what, you know, this evil world order is aiming at, is just having everybody kind of automated and not even knowing anything else that they don't want you to know, and not having agency, although it may look really nice on the surface. And that's kind of what is, you know, how they're selling it to people. This kind of transhumanist stuff is, you know, that it is going to be like a utopian thing, because you're not going to know, like, what's behind the curtain, right? Like, you won't even be able to see. You're not going to have that knowledge of the good and the evil. You're just going to think everything's good, and you're going to be born into it, into some type of matrix, and you won't even know.
That's interesting. I'm really liking what you're saying. As I think about this, and it's true. Like, I mean, I just wonder, like, God, what a boring. Like, if everything was just perfect, and like nothing really, God, it just sounds horrible when you think about it. Like, if there was no, I mean, this is where we're getting into what we were kind of just talking about with the knowing the difference between good and evil, and having that choice. That's something really good in the second hour to kind of get into, and Chris touched on it too. Willpower. I've been really thinking about this for a while lately, like lately heavy, and there's a reason, and this will make sense eventually. Like, not this show, but it will make sense. I don't want to talk too much about why I've been diving into willpower, but there's a reason that I've really kind of went down that thing and that rabbit hole of willpower and really thinking about it, because there's reasons. God, I can't say because it's going to blow the whole thing why I'm doing it. But anyways, there's reasons, and they'll become apparent eventually. But it's a great. I just like what you girls are, you guys are saying. It makes me think, and I love that. And I think this is such an interesting and important conversation, because I think people struggle with what we're talking about, and it's just really interesting. I just want humanity to win. I know there's good people out there, but it's discouraging when you see what's in the big picture. But I'm glad that we're kind of breaking this down. And it usually always seems to boil down to this: we're all on individual journeys. We're all at different levels. That's part of the complexity of this whole thing, is that some people are really advanced at this, and some people are just starting off. Some people are in the middle. And how it's really hard to get coherent. Like, that's why it's so individual. And I was saying right at the beginning of the hour, I said that the work on yourself is the key foundation I think most people are missing. The trick is getting people to do the work on themselves. A lot of people think they're great. Like, they're like, I ain't the problem, they're the problem. And then where do you go from there?
That no one wants to be responsible.
That's perfectly said. You're right. Yeah, it's never their fault. I know those people too. It's like, oh my God, like, and then you just try to talk to them, and that's when I have those moments. It's just when I'm like, wow, we are really going uphill here, because I try to go out and talk to people in the real world. I don't want to fall prey to thinking that everybody thinks the way I do, and then so I always tell people, go talk to people. Like, get out of your house and go talk to people. You're going to learn very, very quickly where people stand just by having a conversation with them, and it's interesting. And so, yeah, what a great conversation, guys. Thank you so much for being here. We got like 30 seconds before a break comes up. Please stick around, everybody, for hour 2. We got a short break. You guys know that. And then we'll be back, of course, with Chris Jantzen from the End Evil podcast. Y'all know Sara Cross. She does crosstalk right here at Revolution Radio. And, of course, the lovely Jaymee Jay, who has been here several times. I've interviewed her several times, more than several times. You can find that on my YouTube and Rumble channel, Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking. Those interviews are there and so powerful. And God knows we're going to get into the second hour. I am open for any discussion. As you guys know, if you want to join, reach out to me and we'll get you on the show here. And you can tell me what you have been thinking about. Because you guys know what I'm thinking about right now. Halloween. Of course. My favorite time of year. Be back at the end of the break, guys.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Industrial Complex podcast here on Revolution Radio, Studio B, every Wednesday, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Get fit, empowered, physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Interrupt your normally scheduled programming to bring you this important broadcasting announcement.
Now is the time to explore your greatest potential, embracing truth, health, and wellness while discarding the system and exposing its corruption. Experience true freedom every Saturday night between 6 and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Live from Studio B, it's the Jonathan Wright Show.
Find it right here at Revolution.Radio.
Welcome to Coffee Rants with Dan. I am the spiritual anarchist, Dan Arnold, your host. Tune in for what's really happening every Thursday. That's Thursday at 9 a.m. in Studio A on Revolution Radio. They keep us in fear to manipulate us. They want us ignorant so we're easier to enslave. They make us murder one another so they don't have to do it themselves. Only you can break their mind control by healing the contradictions within your belief systems that allow you to accept their lies in the first place. The time has come for us to remember our divinity, who we really are, to return to what we are meant to be, a service to others, to return to nature, and to reclaim our birthright, that which is freedom. The truth will sound belligerent because it is in direct opposition to lies. So get angry, because anger is sacred, and together we can unite and rise. Rise from this darkness. Humanity, assemble.
I will defend myself against their tyranny. Number 3 is my radio broadcast. I'm squarely in front of the public all the time, and they all know what's going on.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence.
Hello, my name is John Wayne, and I do a broadcast here at freedomslips.com, Revolution.Radio, called The Unequivocal Truth, DEFCON 1.
Freedom and fear are at war.
And folks, I assure you, we are in Defense Condition 1, as we journey perilously through this paradigm that we currently reside in. And I ask that you join me every Saturday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for The Unequivocal Truth, DEFCON 1.
We shall never surrender. Fire. I'll take you to burn.
Crosstalk with Sara Cross, a place for radio wanderers to learn about the highest laws and other related topics, with the occasional stroll through more relaxed notions. Every Wednesday, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern or 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Crosstalk with Sara Cross, Studio A on Revolution Radio.
The original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite, surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing, in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in a direct line with a panometric fan. The lineup consisted simply of 6 hydrocoptic Marsal vanes, so fitted to the ambifacient lunar wane shaft that side fumbling was effectively prevented. The main winding was of the normal Lotus-O deltoid type, placed in panendermic semi-boloid slots of the stator, every 7th conductor being connected by a non-reversible tremie pipe to the differential girdle spring on the up end of the gram meters.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio, taking the confusion out of transmutated lunar girdle springs for 4 years and running. Revolution Radio, the #1 listener-supported alternative media radio on the planet. All right, thanks for listening while we take that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
Welcome back, everybody. We are once again rolling in hour 2. Crypt Ricks, I've been thinking, what have we been thinking about? So many different things in the last hour. I have some amazing guests on. We have Chris Jantzen from End Evil Podcast. Of course, Sara Cross from Crosstalk right here at Revolution Radio. And Jaymee Jay, who I love having on my show. And we get into some great discussions. She does so much research, and I've learned so much. So it's a real honor to have all of you here. We are also going to be joined by Derek Bartolacelli, which, man, I butcher that last name. It's taken me so long to even get close to his last name. But he's going to be joining us for the second hour very, very shortly. And it's going to be a great second hour. I wanted to ask each of you what you guys have been working on, because this is, of course, I want to hear what you guys have been thinking about. And I'm going to start with you, Chris. What has been occupying your thoughts as of late?
Well, you've been in on my series on symbology. It
was awesome, by the way.
I'd probably point to the coolest one was the nature of symbols, the symbols of nature. And awesome. That one did pretty good on YouTube, and I really put a lot of work into that one, really enjoyed it. But more recently, I'm actually working on a fictional story, kind of like a sci-fi fictional story that I want to publish. Probably won't be another month until I get around to publishing it. But I got this idea that, we're always talking philosophy and having these conversations, but I feel like it's very limited. Some people just can't take in this kind of stuff. And so I'm really wanting to try doing stuff that's more creative. And so I'm writing a fictional story, see if I can get a message out there in a different manner.
So it's not a book, it's just a story, like a short story, or is it a book?
Well, it's more like I'm animating it with graphics. And
very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. I'm kind of testing my skills, too, with graphics and then learning how to animate them a little bit. Very minimal type of animation, but it is.
Hey, you're starting, man.
Process of learning how to use all the AI tools and make images and try to make them move. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, definitely. That's so cool. That's so great to hear. I'm looking forward to that. And your symbology presentations are amazing, and all your presentations are really good. But you've really stepping the game up lately. Like, you're coming a long way, and I think you should go back and look at some of your first ones, and then see what you're doing now, and you're going to be like, whoa, like you've come so far, Chris, and you're putting great content out there. And I love symbologies. That's another thing I can talk about forever. I think symbology is huge. I think it's used as a weapon against us. And a lot of people don't even realize it's being used. So I'm looking forward to this story that you're doing. It's going to be awesome. All the work you do. And so very, very cool. What about you, Jaymee? I want to know. God knows what you're reading. You're always into some really great stuff. So what have you been focusing on lately? Oh
my gosh, I should have turned my screen around, because I literally have 20 books beside me on the table that I'm kind of reading them all at once. But
God, that's crazy.
This week I sort of got on to studying Lyme disease, and I don't have any conclusions yet, but I just think it's actually really connected to satanic ritual abuse, which sounds like a very bold statement to say. But I'm just seeing such a connection to the cover-up of Lyme disease, and that also has all the same symptomology of people that have been put through trauma-based mind control. And I'm just kind of I have a whole stack of books on it, and I'm really looking into it. And especially in Canada, there's been such a cover up of it, and it all connects back to biological germ warfare and nuclear warfare, which was really ramped up around World War II. And Canada has actually a really, really dark history of this. That I used to live by one military base, and what they actually do is they get they'll put different countries' bases on another country's land, kind of how they could do stuff at sea to be under different laws. And so they can do this biological germ research and then sort of have it under an umbrella of, doing it on a different territory. So then they can subject their soldiers to these types of experiments. And of course, this is all connected to, ritual abuse and secret human experimentation that's unethical. So anyways, that's kind of the rabbit hole I'm going down right now. And there's a lot to learn. And I think I'm really onto something. And I've just been digging into all these books, trying to educate myself on that, because I think I just have a real kind of that tingly feeling that I'm onto something. So.
No, that's really interesting. And it's weird that you bring up Lyme disease, because I've probably been tested for Lyme disease more than most. And let me explain why. Is because I mirror a lot of the symptoms of Lyme disease. If you go down the list with my condition, it's almost a mirror copy. And then so every 5 years I go through this. I got Lyme disease. I must have that, and I go and get tested, and then they always say you don't have it. But it's very interesting that you brought that up, because Lyme disease is a crazy one. And you're right. It's really, cover it up. And I've kind of done some research on Lyme disease, so I'm going to be curious to see where you go with this, because, as I said, I got so many of the symptoms. If I go down the list, I'm like, this is what I got. Like, how could they not see it? And then I get tested. I've been tested so many times because I kind of put a line in the sand with the doctor, like, just test me. I'm sure I got it this time. And they're like, no, you don't have it. But it's interesting how it mirrors my symptoms so closely, and how satanic ritual abuse and how it kind of mirrors that. That's going to be fascinating. You can't leave me on that, Jaymee. Like, that's such
I know we should let me I got some really thick books that are going to take me a while to dive into, but we should do a show on it, because no, it is a conspiracy. I think it really, really is. Like, it just kind of came on my radar, and I'm like, no, this is really connected to a lot of other things, like especially the biological germ warfare. And we see like what's going on now with Bill Gates and stuff. Like, I'm like, no, this is the old version of it, just post World War II, that they're trying to cover it up. And then there's just such a connection to like extreme trauma survivors. And so anyways, I have a whole bunch of theories, but yeah, we should definitely maybe do a show on that later once I figure out some good stuff about it.
Yeah, when you're done, let me know. I will definitely get you on the show to dive into this. I love getting you on and having these discussions. I've learned, as I said, I've learned so much. And I mean, when we've gotten into some heavy ones, heavy conversations, and it gets dark, but I know what's going on, and people need to hear about it, and they got to be reminded. So I will definitely get you on for that. When you feel you're ready, you let me know. You know you're always welcome here. So that's going to be a great conversation, by the way. You got me so intrigued now. But anyways, Sarah, what I'm so curious. I love your writing. You know I always love to hear you read your writing. What have you been focusing on? I'm very curious.
Well, first, Chris, keep me updated on the book, because I definitely want to know more about that.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, I think that's killer. And yeah, art has using a creative method that, I am totally fine with seminar type of approach. Like, I could do that for hours. I'm like, yeah, okay, what's the information? But as an artist, art has such a history that there's a reason why our ancients used art in order to communicate certain messages.
Right.
So because it's if you're doing art correctly, however you put it together, it's not speaking, to your external part of your brain. It's actually speaking to the internal part of you. So, and that gives you cues where that little fraction of spirit or source or whatever you want to call a soul is going, tap, 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 listen to this part. So it's important. I think that's why I think it's important to use, art coming from human beings and, that kind of stuff, even though I know AI art is very easy, and easy go to. So but with what Jaymee was saying, I was just thinking she's probably not very far off, because and Rick knows a lot of my topics are very medical based. So I do a lot of research and, medical information generally, both good and bad. And really trying to dismantle it and get, pull out the details where people can see the difference between, what's natural, what's man's intervention, what's, a healthy idea behind it, because I think we need to have both, but it's just then you get the parasite class and they get their fingers in there and then they corrupt it however they corrupt it. Nothing is really new. And they just take whatever's here and they fuss with it and they mess around with it. And that's mostly what I've been focusing on recently, is that kind of history and having people look at that. You can't be just on one side of the spectrum of throw it all away, and the other side of the spectrum is no, it's got to be all state approved, whatever. It's always one side of the scale or the other. And I kind of feel we need to find the balance between both in the middle and understand that man's intervention with certain things actually matter. It matters because we're part of that reality. We're part of that nature. So what sometimes it's just like source or spirit or whatever talking through us. And it's giving us that boost. And I can point out through the more I do research on this, like medical history, which is vast and grotesque in so many ways. And I can see the differences between when there was somebody who was genuine trying to, use that internal natural self, pulling from that, because that, really all medicine comes from nature. Mm-hmm. It's just how corruptible the individual pulling from nature is. But I can tell the difference when there was somebody who was like genuinely trying to figure out a medical problem, like Lyme disease, like in, even Jaymee, I'm sure she's going to come across this kind of thing too. Like this person was genuine in their attempts to figure this out. And then you can see kind of the line, in history where it crosses, and the bigger parts of it, the parasite class steps in and they start getting involved. And then that's where it really gets very dirty in the medical world. And like, I see it that over and over and over again. I have no doubt it is in the realm of the Lyme disease. It's certainly in the realm of cancer. It's certainly in the realm of my own condition with cystic fibrosis. It's in everything. And that's how they control, like when you control, food, water, and medicine, you can really control everything. Yeah. So
great point.
That's what I focus on mostly.
No, that's amazing. Well, we need people like you focusing on that too, because being in the I've been part of the pretty much entwined in the healthcare system since I was 16, and I know how it works, and I try to tell people that I have family members too that are kind of getting older and they're kind of being more involved in the medical system, and I try to show them, try to guide them. And it's amazing how people don't listen to people who know. It's like, God, like how they make the same mistakes I made when I was 17, 18, and plus years, and I try to get them to kind of not make the same mistakes, and people are really stubborn and don't listen. But I get it, and trying to find a doctor that thinks outside the box and is willing to kind of push boundaries and try different things is, at least where I live, extremely difficult. They're so just by the book.
It's difficult in California too.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I just say that to doctors. I'm like, are you willing to think outside the box and try different things? And I try to save them a lot of time. I'm just like, if you're not willing to do that, then we're done. Like, we're done here. Like, I don't need to sit here, and you don't need to tell me I need more pills. And that just drives me crazy too. Like, everything is a pill. Like, you're going to have your blood pressure's a little high. Here, take a pill. It's like, no, can we discuss maybe other ways of getting my blood pressure down? Like, before you want to start pilling me up. And so very, very frustrating. But great. I'm so glad that you're really looking into that. I love your writings. You know that. I love listening to what you've written, and you're really good at it too, which I admire, because I do journaling, and I do I usually write bullet points down on things I want to get done in a day, but in journal, but I can't write like a novel or a very good, pretty much anything. I'm just not a writer, so I admire that. Anyone that can write novels or great pages is amazing to me. So keep doing that, sir. It's amazing, and I look forward to it. And once again, we got him back. He's here finally. He's late, but he's here. Derek Bartolacelli, Awaken Your Mind. What is going on, Derek? It's so great to have you here to join us for the second hour.
Yes. Bonjour. Was I that late? Jesus. Did I get the times mixed up?
It's okay. You're here now, brother.
Yeah, all in the French quadrant. And, unfortunately, I popped in way late. You guys are not talking about Halloween yet, but, I understand.
We kind of touched on Halloween, and we're in that vein. I didn't want to make it about, tell me about a ghost or so. I mean, I just want to have some substance to it. I mean, I'll go there. I mean, hey, if you guys want to talk about ghosts, let's go there. I've never seen anything that looks like a ghost or anything like that. I've seen ghost cats. I was just telling my neighbor that I had a cat that passed away, and it sounds crazy when you talk about it out loud, but I had a cat that passed away, and for 6 months after it passed away, I would come in the house, and at the bottom of the stairs, that cat would be sitting there, as clear as day. And I would kind of like walk away and like walk quickly by the door, and I go, wait a minute, and I go back, and it wouldn't be there, of course. And this happened for like 6 months, and then we got into a big discussion, whether it's just energy that's dissipating or whatever. That's another show. But
don't discredit that, Rick, because if you want ghost stories, I can give you ghost stories. But
we can do ghosts. We can do ghosts. I mean, but I want to see, like, we got to get Derek here a chance. What, like, Derek, I'm curious. I asked everybody what they're working on. I know you do a lot of music stuff, which I love, by the way. It's awesome. But what are you working on? And then we'll get into ghosts. Let's do it for the last half an hour. We can get into ghost or make it kind of more Halloween-y at the end. I know we went deep. We kind of like really took off deep here, but I love the conversation. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here. I really do. And that goes for people that are listening. I mean, I wouldn't.
Yeah, definitely. And what I just caught listening in was, I definitely give props to Sara Cross. You know, she is a good writer, you know, writing for her Substack and the Liberator 2 with Corey Angelitz, Dan Arnold and the folks, you know, and that's great. I love what they're doing. I've collaborated with, you know, every one of them and everyone here on the panel pretty much. How's it going? Jaymee Jay, Chris? I think that's Chris Jantzen. But geez, I have so many things going on. I was just talking to Alpha Vuk from out in Germany. He says hello, by the way.
Hello.
Connects with Europa Natural Law. Francesco Sani's in there as well, hailing from Italy. Yeah, I'm out here in France. I'm from California, so I understand exactly what Sarah's talking about. And I had, you know, to refrain myself from blowing up multiple times when I was back with my parents and regarding like serious health issues and all that stuff. And yeah, it sucks that people fall too much into this. Sarah was talking about like dualism and how it's like, if it's not this, it's got to be that or something like that. And like, well, there's the gray stuff. Well, where's the third, fourth, fifth options? You know, like we're multidimensional beings anyways. Like, what's going on, y'all? Like, why are we so limiting ourselves? Like,
it's a good point, man. People are very, very either left. You know, you're right. They either go all the way to the left or all the way to the right. And it's like, wait a minute, there is a gradient in there. And this is the balance I think we're all seeking. At least I am. I mean, I'm trying to balance everything. It's all about balance. Guys, I'm like the Karate Kid now. Oh, it's all about balance, Daniel. But anyways, I mean, but it's true. I mean, I think these sayings linger forever because there's a lot of truth in them. And so I love that you brought that up. That I think this is the balance that we're looking for and trying to make sense of what's been done to us as a species and what they are currently doing, which I talk about and we all talk about so often. So you make a good point. Like people are very they're on one side or the other. It's very weird how people do that.
Yeah, and that's what we do at Dissolving the Divide, which, you know, we've been delaying too long to get you on, brother. We'll get that happening. We had wonderful chats with Jaymee and Sarah and Chris. But, just a lot of stuff going on. In France, you know, in a lot of places in Europe, it feels like, or even outside of America, let's not be so Americentric. And I'm including Canada in there as well.
All right.
As far as, you know, celebrating Halloween and this and that, people aren't all like, it's kind of commercially driven.
Oh, absolutely.
We all know the commercials. It's like a Hallmark holiday rendered into one, you know, and it sucks because, you know, with that in mind, it just waters down the original traditional meanings and values behind that. But yeah, there are certain elements still involved, like, you know, there's still pumpkin patches and that kind of stuff. And there are people that do try to teach the youth, like, hey, you know, this is the harvest time and all this stuff. And even in school, you know, you draw your little wheat, you know, stalks or whatever. But, you know, it just seems that the candy and, you know, the disguises and all the costumes, that takes precedent over anything. And like, just like the value goes out the window in a sense, right?
That's true.
Then it's like, no time to think about that because, you know, Thanksgiving's on its way, turkey time, you know, like, so gobble, gobble.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the true meaning. Like, that's why I was so grateful when I had Logan Hart and Will Keller come on and we broke down the major holidays because I think that you make a great point. And if anyone wants to chime in on what Derek is saying, please just feel free to do so. I would love to hear your thoughts. But if they have been hijacked in so many ways, these holidays, and it was great to actually hear the origins and break. I can't recommend that people go check that out on my channel or Will Keller's or Logan Hart's channel. These presentations that these discussions we had here for the major holidays and the breakdown of them, and it's amazing, like the origins of them and how far we've gotten away from them. Like it's like Derek said, like it's become very extremely commercialized. And definitely Halloween and Christmas. I think they all have. All of them have. I can't even think of one that's not guilty of that. Easter, Valentine's Day, they've really marketed it. But you make a good point, Derek. You lose the meaning, like the origin of it, which is really important.
Yeah, and that was a great episode last year, too. I watched that. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was.
This is all about the history. But yeah, like, I think it would, it would be great if people like understood the origins and where things came from, but like now it's just been inverted into a state approved, holiday protocol system. So like now if it's on the calendar, that's like what matters. And I think because this is, I guess maybe it's a theory, I don't know, but I think what it is just the parasites decided to usurp the things that were like part of like genuine human like developed culture that we did ourselves, and they just like got their little fingers in it and they stirred the pot, and then they turned the original versions of these holidays, which they're not called Christmas or Halloween, or there's not even that's like modern day terminology. And they just like turned it, they used it for their own sick purposes. And then they got us to go along with it by calling it a holiday and printing it on a calendar. And then like playing like it doesn't, like all the external facets of it, like Halloween, we dress up and give out candy and go to pumpkin patches. And like, that's all that it's about. All Easter is like a gigantic rabbit and like eggs for some reason. And then like Christmas is about, decorating a Christmas tree, and, Thanksgiving is about turkey and beer and football. So it's like all external, like, things that play at us. Like, it's like, I kind of would equate the same kind of, it's like giving an iPad to a 5-year-old to keep it entertained, but for adults.
Oh, for sure.
And that's like what it feels like to me. Yeah. So I kind of feel like I don't know if we can really get back to doing these things like how they were originally intended. And maybe we should be able to let, the past go and all that kind of regard, as far as how we celebrate each new season. And I think we should just like take those, and instead of like allowing it to be like these weird parasitic type of, holidays now, which it seems like that's what it really is now, we should just like make it a new thing. So, and people should look at it as more of, okay, like, so for Halloween, we're not going to tolerate any of the parasitic, add-ins that they've added in, and we're going to make it our own again. And even if we have to change how these things work again, so I don't know, it's like an idea, I guess.
It's a good idea. It's a good thinking, a thought experiment for sure. And you make a great point. I mean, but I get why they do what they do. Like if you start destroying if people don't know the origins of things, they're easily fooled. I mean, like, think how easy that is. If you don't have any foundation, I keep saying that too, foundation. You don't have a foundation to stand on in so many things. It's no wonder people are so easily led and persuaded to go in all different directions because they have no ground to stand on. And I get why they do it. You destroy a person's origins or you destroy that foundation, whatever it may be. You own them. Like you're really got a good grip on them, and they know that. And so I think that's why they do that. That's why they cheapen these things and invert them, and they keep pulling us further and further away from origins of so many things, is because they realize that there's strength in knowing these things, like where they come from and what they truly mean. Like I was fascinated by when I learned about these holidays when we dove into it for 2 hours, and we could have done another show on it. I was like, wow, like how many people even know this? Like they don't. I didn't even know a lot of it. So it's something that, what do you think? I want to get your thoughts, Jaymee and Chris, on what we're discussing. I think they're destroying our origins and a lot of our history and all that because they know that it weakens society.
Yeah, can I just add something?
Sure.
Like, I just because we did the shows about like energy vampires and stuff, and
That was
like
a great
that
show.
parasiting, and like from what I've studied of dark occultists and stuff, like it's that's like a real thing, and they always encourage people to generate energy for their rituals, and it's actually really dangerous to participate and generate energy for something and then not be directing your own will. If you're just like making a big energy ball and then they're directing it to their will. So it's like when we go and participate in a bunch of things really unconsciously and are not actually like consciously directing our energy into something that we're willing, that's like you're basically just leaving yourself open to being vampired and like becoming an extension of someone else's will. And I feel like that happens a lot with holidays. And we talked sort of before on our other shows about just sort of mass, trance-like behavior where people are just like conditioned like Pavlov's dogs on certain dates to go out and do certain things, and like, buying flowers on Valentine's or putting up a Christmas tree. Like it's just so unconscious, and this repetition of tradition instead of, really doing things that you are doing specifically for your own purposes. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to add that in there. And so like, it's like, for example, like people saying like 420 is Hitler's birthday or something, right? People just think they're going and partying, or, people just think they're celebrating certain things when maybe they're not celebrating what they think they're celebrating. So just always being like conscious of where you're generating energy and where you're directing your energy. And I don't know if anybody's noticed, but it's actually been Halloween for like 3 years. Like they have been doing like a huge inversion ritual, like a subliminal, like, inversion ritual on all of humanity on the planet, like for, it's been, I guess, almost over 3 years now. Right. And even just like having the masks and everything, like there's just such a correlation to me of, having that sort of inversion ritual being done. I feel like it's been Halloween for 3 years now.
Good point, man. I wouldn't argue with you on that at all. The inversion is key. And we've all kind of hit on that. What are you thinking about this, Chris? And then I'll get Derek's thoughts, and then we will wrap up talking about Ghost. Let's make it about Halloween for last.
This last weekend, we have these stores here in America. They're called a Halloween store. I don't know if this is.
Oh yeah, we got those.
It's like they take over the whole, abandoned part of strip malls, and they'll take like the biggest store that no one's using and they'll just rent it out for this time of year. It starts in like, I don't know, they probably started it like a month and a half ago.
Yep.
It's like a warehouse of just like crazy Halloween stuff, right? But like it's kind of scary. Like, I mean, I'm not one of those that gets scared. I don't really like horror because I don't get scared that easily. And I'm like, why are you keep trying? I just find it irritating. Like, why are you trying to scare me? That whole jump.
Right.
It's like, to me, it's just irritating. And I just get like, I'm going to punch somebody, don't do that again. You know what I mean? Like, don't try to scare me. I don't really like to put myself in that position because I don't really like that feeling. But like even Home Depot, there's like these giant, like 20-foot, like skeleton, like crazy demon creatures. And I'm looking at little kids like, dang, man, when I was a little kid, if I would have saw that,
oh yeah,
I would have pooped my pants. And that's how I'm going to say it because I'm on Rick's show here. But I would have pooped my pants. Literally, like, they're making stuff like gradually scarier and scarier and scarier and more animatronic. My kids were into this game all through their childhood. It was called Five Nights at Freddy's. I remember when this is the whole reason I went in the Halloween store, because I was with my kids. They're adult age now. But, and so I know they have their own discernment at this point, but like I found the Five Nights at Freddy's mask and I came and brought it over to them with it on my face. I'm like, like, they grew up with this stuff. And even at that time, I'm like, this stuff is so sinister. It's like when I was a kid, there was Chuck E. Cheese. But if I would have known about Five Nights at Freddy's, I would have never gone to Chuck E. Cheese. Because in Five Nights at Freddy's, the Chuck E. Cheese characters come to life and they eat the children, you know, and that's like a scary thought, considering what it's actually representing is the reality of what the evil people are actually doing in our actual world. They're creating like technotronic monsters that eat children and drink their blood, basically.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the craziest, most nastiest, scariest stuff you would ever want to think of that you don't really want to think of, but you know it's real. And so it's like we're in this weird world. We're walking into places like the Halloween store, Disneyland and stuff, and they're representing symbolically the exact thing we're trying to tell the world about, but they're doing it in a hokey, jokey, silly way. Like, haha, this is funny. And we're standing there in this weird double entendre, like, not only are you like giving it to us in the rear here, but you're laughing at us while you're doing it.
Yeah.
And it's pretty sad to see. And it's on all the television shows. When I was a kid, it started off with the good guy getting beat up. And in the end, the good guy would beat up the bad guy after he got beat up a bunch. Right. But the good guy would win. Now it's the other way. You're watching it from like Dexter's point of view. You're the bad guy. You're the scary, psychologically screwed up mind, and they're teaching you to empathize with that mind in all the shows.
That's going on a lot.
And now you're
actually
in the stores with your consumerism and the video games. You're shooting zombies and killing millions of zombies, and you're the one that's killing. You know what I mean? You're the psycho now. That's the way that the psychology has changed little by little through my whole lifetime. I've seen it. It's scary, man.
No, it is. And you make a good point where the villains now people are cheering for it. And I can tell you one quick thing, and I want to get your thoughts, Derek, on what we're discussing here. Definitely. But a quick little thing, and I realized this with a certain TV show where people started cheering for people that do awful things and like the bad people. And then, believe it or not, it was Sons of Anarchy. I love that series. I really do. It's motorcycles and bikers. Go figure. Anyways, I saw that character progress through episode 1 up to the last season. And I mean, during the course of that series, anyone who's watched, I'm sure many have, he does horrible things through that show. Like, I mean, like the worst. But people fell in love with that character to the point where at the end, when he kills himself, basically, and I think most people, I don't think I'm ruining it for anybody. Most people have seen it. If not, well, I don't know. But at the end, he kills himself. And I'm like, wow, to the point where people would cry. Like, there's reaction videos of people crying. And I'm like, that's some real mind manipulation going there, where you got a person who starts off pretty decent. Through the course of all those seasons, he just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and does the most heinous things. And people are in love with that character. Dexter's another good one. And they kind of, it's interesting. So I want your thoughts, Derek, and anyone else's, because I know what Chris is talking about. They've even done this inversion where you're not cheering for the good guy anymore. It's like this. It's really fascinating when you think about this. I wonder what you guys are thinking. What do you think, Derek?
Yeah, totally. And this has been something that I've done a couple of videos that I, have just on so many back burners. I literally have like 100 videos that I've recorded and haven't done much with because I have so many other stuff going on. But it's a beautiful thing. Gotta love the great work. But that is a subject we gotta put on the list for One Great Work Warriors. I feel
that would be a good one.
Chris, note it down. Well, we'll talk about it later. But yeah, man. Chris, he cracked me up, man. Like Chuck E. Cheese and all that. Oh man, brings it back. But yeah, even like that in the whole Five Nights at Freddy thing. I know, wasn't there like a recent movie they put out, a horror movie about that? Nicolas Cage was in it, I believe.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm not familiar with that. But regardless, like, yeah, things are just kind of scary already. And like with the horror films, it can leave a pretty deep impression, especially on these young subjective minds. Easily subjective, rather. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, I remember back, well, hold on, because, just real quick, because Jaymee brought up a great point with the Pavlovian effect of these effects in like, oh, it's about that time. We got to gear up for this holiday now, and yada yada. And yeah, like for me, I've said this for years, just because just looking at the whole social observations of things in objective as I can. I call it like Pavlovian monkeys, because there is like the monkey see, monkey do type of thing, of course. But there's also the 100th monkey effect in effect. And people think, especially those that are awakened and aware to that, phenomena, they think it's just, something for, like the greater good of, human evolution. But no, dark occultists know it can work both ways. And that's part of the social engineering. Hello. But anyway, so on the flip, because I'm in a funny mood now because, those stories bring it back to childhood. And honestly, I haven't celebrated Halloween in literally over a dozen years just because it just doesn't really exist in France. I had like maybe one or two trick-or-treaters, and no one prepares for it. We didn't have any decorations, and I think both times I felt really bad. I was like, geez, I'm sorry. And I kind of feel bad because they want to, make an effort. And I feel like we could talk about this too, because there is a cool type of, magical moment that, groups of people can have, especially when you're trick-or-treating out with, a little group of friends and all that shit. Mm-hmm. It was cool, right? But, and it was funny, just, to the punchline of the story is that, I was telling it's like a little girl with the costume and this and that. And, like, geez, I feel so ashamed because, I'm from the country that, goes crazy for that holiday, and here I am with nothing to offer.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
But I remember, back when I was, either a preteen or whatever, I got egged hardcore one time, running from cops. There was a cop that was chasing us, and he hit his head on some kind of sign or something, and he got all bloodied up and all this stuff. It was an interesting thing. We just kind of booked it and didn't look back that much, except for some people that were there for long enough to tell the story. But how, things get exaggerated, but whatever. But, so there are some weirdos out there. It just sucks that it just doesn't have that feel, growing up in the 80s and 90s. Today it just seems totally different, even though I'm way out of touch. That's just the impression I've got from things.
Yeah, I'm with you. I love the 80s, man. I really do. I think I always say I feel so fortunate that I grew up in that time, because it was magical. And anyone that's grown up in the 80s knows what I'm talking about. It was just a different energy, which, Jaymee was talking about energy, right? Like it was just a different energy, and it had its problems. Don't get me wrong, but compared to what's going on now, I don't even, half the time I walk around going, where am I? Like, I don't recognize this world. I don't recognize a lot of the people. Like, I'm just like, I feel like a stranger in a strange land a lot of the times. I don't get it. I'm just like, how did we get here? I say that all the time. Like, how did we get here? And so it's an interesting conversation. It's definitely gets me thinking all the time, and I love hearing your guys' thoughts on this. I think there's a lot going on. Well, I know there's a lot going on. You kind of touched on a lot of it, and I think there's a lot more than just one little thing going on. This is a multi-faceted thing that's going on, and they've got their hands into everything. And kind of Sarah brought that up, but we've all brought that up as well. Sarah really touched on that. They got their hands into everything, and that's what we're up against. So it's been a great discussion, guys, and we should end it, though, on Halloween something. I mean, it is a Halloween special. I could keep going for another 2 hours with you guys. I really was looking forward to this and enjoying this, and once again, thank you for being here. It's amazing. A great conversation, one that I think needs to happen more. And so, I don't know. I don't have any. I wish I could give you some great ghost story. I have my ghost story with my cat. That's as far as I can go, is that I saw my cat for like 6 months after it passed away. Don't see him anymore. Like, I don't know and I was saying to my neighbor, I think it was just an energy. So we were talking about how energy kind of sticks around and maybe gets trapped in an object or a walls or something. And I kind of thought, well, maybe that was her energy signature, and then it dissipated and I don't see her anymore. But if anyone's got a ghost story, I want to hear it. We got a little over 15 minutes. Let's do it. Tell me some ghost story, guys.
I could tell you one about when I lived in Ireland, and it's like a bit dark. But, well, the history behind it is a bit dark, but I do think, like, I know a lot of people like, oh, ghosts aren't real, that's not real, but, like, I do absolutely know that it's real because I've had multiple experiences, and my husband could tell you even weirder ones. But when we lived in Ireland, I lived in Ireland for several years, and I lived in Limerick City, which is like one of the oldest parts of Ireland. it actually has a very dark history. Just like the whole city has a very dark history behind it. And it's actually got a reputation for being cursed because back in the day during the famine that they had, you had a lot of the men just jump ship, and they got on boats and they went to like Australia or elsewhere for, quote, work to, find work and feed their families, send money back, but that they just abandoned their families really. And they never came back. And so Limerick City is very, people say it's cursed. It's a very haunted city. And it's got all these underground tunnels all through it. And the underground tunnels were like, really, that's like the sewer system now. But it was where during the famine, people who were, the odd of society, like people who were, autistic, or people who were plagued, or people who were poor, or people who, whatever it was, they were just too poor to live anymore. They all went down there eventually. So we moved into this building in Limerick City, which was about 200, just over 200 years old or something like that, is what I was told. And it was, it looked like it was 200 years old. But the inside, the guy who bought it, he had reconstructed all the inside. It was beautiful. It was brand new. It was all modern. And when we first moved in, like the first week, I had all the lights on because I was doing something like cutting fabric and setting something up to make something. But all the lights were on, so I had the whole room like open. The doors were all open because in Ireland, every single door frame has a door attached to it. That's not super common in America. So I had all the doors open, everything. All the lights were on all the way up. And then I see in the peripheral view of my vision, this like short little black person, like it's like kid shaped. Like that's the feeling it gave to me, was that this is a kid. And they peeked behind, like around the door frame, and they're staring at me. And I see this just in my peripheral vision. And when I realized it, I jumped back and I was like, oh, and I immediately pushed it out of my space. So then it was gone, because I do that habitually. Like I don't allow astral critters or astral, previously living humans in my space, because I just don't. I don't recommend it.
I wouldn't either.
So it was just like a reflex, that I did. And then I kind of regretted it a little bit later, because then I realized, I'm like, oh, you know what? I think this was a kid. So then, because that's what it felt like, a curious kid. Like, what are you doing? So then I found out, like, probably about a year and a half later, something like that. One of the guys who had helped the guy who owned it reconstruct the building, like the construction side of it, he told me, so on the very bottom floor, it was all covered up with like linoleum fake flooring. And right in the middle of the floor, on days that it was not raining, a little puddle of water would come up. And I thought maybe it was just some weird leak somewhere. So I told the guy who built that floor, and he said, oh, there's a door right there. Like, what do you mean? There's a door hatch underneath that floor. And before we put over that floor, we had opened the hatch and we kind of went in a little bit to see, like, what is this? Mm-hmm. Like, where does this lead? And they figured out where it led. It's these underground tunnels that are back from like the famine and probably, how the city was built. That's where they went to hide. And he's like, he told me he took about 3 steps into this tunnel. And he's like, I was right. I was out of there faster than nothing. I was gone. Like I was 3 steps in. It was pitch black. You couldn't see anything with a light. I was gone. So he went out. They closed it. They sealed it up, and they put the floor down. And he's like, that's why I don't come into this building. And then he left. And I was like, oh, great. now I've got an entire tunnel system with a door leading into my building with all of these people who were plagued with famine and Black Plague and, just atrocity. Like, that's why they end up like orphans ended up down there, stuff like that.
Dark energy. Wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, no wonder Limerick is like absolutely cursed. But like, other than that, it's like a really awesome city. I actually really like Limerick.
No, but it's really
yeah, that's like one of like the ghost experiences I remember like the most. I mean, there's like a couple of weird ones as well that are a bit foggy in my head, and that's just because of the way it happened.
Right.
So I don't know how to explain it, but that was like one of the nicer.
Oh, that was really wild. Yeah, I can see that too. Like, no, thanks for sharing it. I find these stories fascinating. I've looked into ghosts, and you name the rabbit hole, I've been down it to some degree. Unless I get led somewhere that's new, but ghosts are one of them. Does anyone else? I mean, we still got time. I want to hear if anyone else. I envy people that have had these experiences, especially paranormal or alien or UFO or anything like that. I've never had anything that I know of like that, except for the cat incident I told you about. But does anyone else have anything that's weird? I mean, anything weird, like a fit? Or
I have kind of a, it's not really a ghost story, but I did live at this really weird military base where they were doing biological germ warfare during World War II. And I could do a whole show about all the weird phenomenon of this place.
Oh yeah, we'll be talking.
But anyways, I kind of lived by it, and it was out basically in the middle of nowhere by a military base. So nobody ever came to my house on Halloween. So I just never bought candy, right? Because like a couple of years I did, no kids ever came. So I just thought, oh, I'm safe. They're never going to come here, right? And it was so eerie this one Halloween. So there's like this knock at the door, and I'm like, oh, weird, right? Like, who would be here? It's just in the middle of nowhere, right? Anyways, I opened the door, and it's 3 kids, and they're like those little Russian dolls that fit inside each other, and they weren't even dressed up, and they were like little clones of each other, like 3 of them in different sizes, and they had white blonde hair, just like off the Children of the Corn, and like it just terrified me. Like when I opened the door, it was just so creepy. Like I was like, oh my god, like why are you here? Like I didn't think anybody would come here, and they just like, and I'm like, I'm really sorry, I don't have any candy. No kids ever came here. Like, they just had this like blank expression on their face, like they would not accept the answer. And then the biggest one was like, he's like, don't you have anything, lady? And I was like so scared that I literally went and got my wallet and just like paid them off to leave.
Take some money.
Wow. Can I just add one more thing? This is so funny. I just have to share this. My friend goes to the Lutheran church, and he got an email, and it I just thought this is so crazy. It's like, hello parishioners, attached is a leaflet for Sunday. For the All Saints and Halloween celebration, which is like, it just sounds super creepy to me that they would have this at the church. And then it says, baby wanted for the All Saints and Halloween celebration during the tours. We'll be with the kids and families talking about the gift of the birth of Jesus Christ. Please contact Jasmine if you have a baby. I was like, who even sends this out on Halloween?
Yeah,
that's a weird way to put that. Like, maybe they should have edited it a little bit more, because I'm sure they just want to like do one of those scenes.
It's still weird.
Christ.
Yeah,
it's creepy.
But I mean,
like
the story about the children at her door. I was just when Sarah was talking about her ghost thing, I was like, the one story that's always creeped me out is the black-eyed children, and then Jaymee brings out that story. Like, I couldn't make this up. Like, that's the one story that always creeps me out, is about these black-eyed children. Mm-hmm. And knock on the door, and then there's so much out there about them, and that creeps me out. I really get creeped out by that, if people want to know. So that's weird, Jaymee. That would freak me the hell out if I had 3 kids knock on my door. Like, I don't even want. Even my neighbor that's listening right now, he's going, "That's so creepy, dude." I'm just like that. I don't know what it is, but I don't know. Anyone? What about you, Chris? Anything paranormal ever happened to you or Derek, or are you in my boat?
I haven't had, like real visual type experiences. Heard of a lot of interesting things, but I'm very open to, other people's stories. I think it's just interesting that we don't all, like in a way, like we're all a little bit different radios and we tune in different things, like I've noticed over the years, I pick up on things that other people don't. and it'll be hard to describe specifically, but it has to do with being able to be in someone else's. I can understand another person's empathetically perspective really well. It's very easy for me. It takes little effort. Other people, it's a struggle to do that. I've noticed. It's something I didn't realize until over years. Like, I think some of us have abilities and tendencies that are stronger, just like some of us have a stronger bicep than the other, you know?
I agree.
And some of us have that ability to kind of like see through the beyond, see through the ether a little bit more than others. And that's not my gift, but I do know it's all there. And I don't mess around with it. Like, if people are like, hey, you want to play with a Ouija board? I'm like, nah. You know, I don't do that. Yeah, I think it's real. I think if you guess around with that enough, you're going to have some effects, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not messing
I totally agree.
That I know to be real, that I know not to be a magician in. You know, like, I don't have a lot of skills in that department, so I kind of stay out of it. I'm like Sarah was saying, if I had sent something, I'm like, get out of my space. And I think that's why stuff doesn't come around to me. And I just wanted to, the only other thing I wanted to say was, as far as takeaways from the show, what Jaymee said is so true. If you're engaged in your will and your consciousness and you're working on things that are good, that are not stealing, nothing really can get into that bubble. It's like a super powerful bubble. If your intention and your will is on positive, good things, how can something evil corrupt you? You know, it's very difficult to do that when you're in that action. But
that's a great point, and that's a great way to sum it up. Derek, you got the last 2 minutes, my friend. What do you think of this? Last 2 minutes are yours, my friend.
Thank you. And you all said a lot of great things and made some great points that can get us thinking, right?
What's it all about, man?
Trying to figure out if I have any kind of story. I really don't, unfortunately. But
join my boat. I got a cat that I saw for 6 months. I mean, but Sarah said to take that. You know, don't just shrug that off. So, I mean, I definitely know what I saw, and it was constant. So,
definitely. Right. And what you said is kind of what I hold true, as far as just like there's, you know, that energy that can be stagnant even after, you know, the physical passes away kind of thing. But as far as, we have to think of all these things in terms of energy. And what are we paying our focus and attention and energy to, and what are we being subjected towards? And so, like, the main point to take away for anyone listening to this, I feel, is what Jaymee was talking about in regards to how, there's a lot of dark occultist rituals circumventing a lot of these holidays. You know, they call them, you know, satanic holidays, if you will, which kind of hijack, you know, other, you know, traditional things. You know, going over solstice, equinoxes as well, that kind of stuff. And so do not let them harvest your energy. There are actual fucking vampires out there, just not in the forms that you see on TV kind of thing.
That's a great way to end it, guys. I want to thank you all so much for being here. You made this Halloween show amazing. And don't forget, check out their work, guys. Chris Jantzen, you can find him on YouTube all over, and Evil Podcast. We also have Derek Bartolacelli. You can find him AwakenYaMind on YouTube. We have, of course, Sara Cross, and you can check her show at Crosstalk Radio at Revolution Radio, and the lovely Jaymee Jay, who I'm going to get on my show real soon because I know she's got some good stuff that I want to get into, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you guys for being here. Have a great, safe Halloween, and I will talk to you guys next week. Have a great week, guys. You are the greatest. Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Listening to Revolution Radio.
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
Do you love topics about history, world events, popular conspiracies, and everything under the sun, while discussing their historical context? Then welcome your host Trinity, where no topic is off the table, truth is spoken to power, and where your voice can be heard. Here is where you can communicate openly and learn from one another, while respecting our diverse society and figuring out the truth to where we're heading. Join Trinity in a 2-hour roller coaster ride of research, comedy, and interesting content. Made with you in mind, people that matter the most. On Mondays at 12 a.m. Eastern and 11 p.m. Central, only on Revolution Radio Studio B. Be a part of a different way to hear radio.